Hello everyone, my name is Venkat. So, so this is Tableau Series 3. So in this Tableau Series 3, I want to discuss about dimensions versus measures. Okay. So you can go to last class, Tableau Series 2. And in the Tableau Series 2, I have discussed about non-aggregation versus aggregation data. So in this series, I want to discuss about dimensions versus measures. Okay. So, so in the last class, we have connected to a sample student data. So when you see, when I connected to sample student data, so you observe that, okay, let me tell you. So in the sample student data, I have these many fields. So student roll number is one field, student name is one field, subject is one field, like that. So we have so many fields are there in the sample data. But if you see, for example, I'm just taking a particular example here. So if you see external marks column, so this is one column, right? So if you take external marks column, or okay, let me come from starting actually. If you take student roll number column, this student roll number will column appear under measure list. Okay, so first let me tell you what is the measure and what is the dimension. So see, when I connected to student data here, you see whenever I hover my mouse on the student name, it is appearing in the blue color. Similarly, if I hover my mouse on the subject, it is also appearing in a blue color. So similarly, if I drag any this field into the row shelf or column shelf, I can see still blue color only. Okay. So what is the thing is, so whatever you see in the blue color, those are called dimensions. Okay. Whatever you see in the blue color, those are called dimensions. And whatever you see, what are the fields you will see in the green color, those are called measures. For example, if I hover my mouse on the external marks, it is appearing under green color. So it is a measure. So that is the main difference. So if you see something in blue color, that is a dimension. If you see something in the green color, that is a measure actually. Now, if I go for my Excel data here, if you observe student roll number, internal marks 1, internal marks 2, external marks. So all these four columns are appearing under measure list. Why? Because how the Tableau is doing like that means, if you see, if you observe all these four columns, in all these four columns, the values are actually, I can say, numbers here. For example, if you go for student roll number, I can see 1, 2, 3. So all these are numbers. And even if I go for internal marks 1, I can see all these are numbers. So even if you go for this marks column, it is a numbers. It's in the external marks columns also, I can see numbers. So what is the Tableau doing is, if a particular column contains numbers, then the Tableau is considering it as a measure. Okay, Tableau is considering it as a measure actually. Okay, and if you see the remaining columns, for example, student name, subject, or pass or fail. If you see all these three, for example, if you see all these three, student roll number, student name, subject, and pass or fail. All these three columns contains alphabets. So Venkat is a character or it is a string actually. So if you see subject, it is a alphabet or this will contain uh, string. Even if you go for this column also contains PA pass. Pass means it is a alphabets or it is a string actually. So if you if the Tableau identify that if any column contains alphabets or strings, Tableau is considering that as a dimension. Okay, so just remember this. If Tableau identifies something if the particular column contains alphabets or strings, then that will be considering as a dimension. And if it sees something, if a column contains numbers, then it is considering that column as a measure actually. Okay, so if you see in the Tableau also, you can see the same thing. So student name, subject to pass or fail, these are coming as a dimensions. And if you see all these external marks, marks 1, marks 2, student roll number, all these are coming as a measures. Okay. Now I will tell you a simple example. So this is how we can identify, and it is how this is a way Tableau will identify the dimensions and measures. When we consider Excel file, Tableau will consider dimensions and measures in this way. Okay, so when it is a database, right? Then I will explain you. Uh, when we connect it to a database, then how the Tableau will consider a particular field as a dimension or measure. Okay, so as of now, consider Excel as a data source. In this data source, whenever you see in the blue color, that is a dimension. Whenever you see in the green color, that is a measure. And like this. Now, I want to explain you what is the difference between dimension and measure actually. Okay. Okay. I know that Tableau is identifying measures and dimensions based on the number or based on an alphabet order. Okay. Now, I want to explain you what is the difference between dimension and measure. So, for example, I'm just taking a particular column here. Okay, I'm just taking a particular column. Let's go for a particular column here, like student roll number. Okay, let's copy this column. Okay, no need to copy this column. So consider this student name as a column here. So as of now, student name is appearing under measure list, right? Okay, as it is appearing in a measure list. So for measures, what the Tableau will do is whenever a particular field is considered as a measure, then what the Tableau will do is Tableau will do the summation of all these rows actually. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3. So if it is a measure, the Tableau will do the summation of all these rows. Okay. So for example, whenever I consider, like for example, consider student roll number as a measure. And so whenever you drag one measure into the, for example, let me show you. Whenever I drag one measure into the text here, you see what is happening. Whenever you drag some measure into the text here, Tableau will automatically do the summation, and it is giving the result is 11 here. Okay, now let's go to Excel sheet and we'll see what is happening. So for measures, it will do the summation. What is that means? It will do summation of all these rows actually. And when it do summation of all these rows, it is coming as 11 here. Okay, so it is how the Tableau will do. So for measures, what the Tableau will do? Tableau will do summation. In that way, we are getting the result as 11 actually. Now we'll see what will happen if the same, give me a second. Now let's think if the same measure, if the same field will consider as a dimension, what will happen? Okay, so if we consider the same field as a dimension, Tableau will not do summation, and it will display values as it is actually. Okay, so let me repeat you. So if it is a dimension, let me make it bit bigger. Okay, so if it is a measure, Tableau is doing summation of all these values. But if it is a dimension, what the Tableau will do is Tableau will display the values as it is without doing any summation. So in that way, what I will get in the output is, so what are the values? We have 1, we have 2 and 3. So the output will be 1, 2 and 3 like this. Okay. So this is the main difference between dimension and measure. So for example, if you see one is repeating 4 times, but what the Tableau will do, Tableau will repeat it only one time because as it is a dimension value. Similarly, if the 2 is repeating so many times, in real time, it may repeat 1 lakh records in 1 lakh time also. But as it is a dimension value, Tableau will repeat only one time in the output actually, like that. Okay, so one more example for dimension is, for example, if you take student name, see, for example, if you take student name, Tableau is considering student name as a dimension actually. Why? Because it contains alphabets here. Okay, so what will happen? Same thing. What the Tableau will do for dimensions? So Tableau will do display dimensions as it is. So here we have Venkat, right? So Tableau will display output in the Venkat only. And we have Ravi also, right? As the Venkat is repeating in 4 rows, but Tableau will repeat only one time only. Okay, for dimensions. And Ravi will be in the output, we will get only one time only. Similarly for Rajesh also. Okay, so here the main concept is if a particular field is dimension, then what the Tableau will do is Tableau will repeat those values as it is. But if the particular value is a measure, then Tableau will do the summation of all those values. Okay, that is the difference between measures and dimension. Because of that reason, if you go to Tableau, and if you drag any measure into the text here or column shelf or row shelf, Tableau automatically will do the summation. And similarly, if you drag any dimension into the row shelf, then Tableau will display those values as it is without doing any summation. Maybe whether these values are numeric or whether these values are string or alphabets. For dimensions, Tableau will show values as it is without doing any summation. Now, based on this, I have one scenario in real time. So in some cases, we have to convert our, okay, so based on, I have one requirement actually. Okay, based on this, I have one requirement. Now in Tableau, what is the requirement I have is, for each student, I have to show the roll number actually. For each student, I want to show the roll number here actually. Okay, so for Venkat, what is the roll number actually? If you go here, Venkat is repeating in 4 rows. For all the 4 rows, the for all the four rows, the roll number will be same only, one only. So we have to display roll number is one. For Ravi, what is the roll number? Two here. Why? Because roll number will not change, right? Even the Venkat is repeating in how many rows, the roll number will remain same for particular candidate. Okay, like that. So similarly for Rajesh, the roll number has to show be three only. Okay. Now go to Tableau and we'll see whether we are getting the correct result or not in the Tableau. Okay. So for Venkat, we have to show one. For Ravi, we have to show two. For Rajesh, we have to show three. But if you go to Tableau here, you see what is happening. When I drag the student roll number into text here, you see Tableau is automatically doing the summation here. Because of that reason, I can see for Venkat, I can see 4 here. The roll number I am seeing for Venkat is 4 here. For Ravi, I am seeing 4 here. Why it is showing wrong value here? Why? Because as the student roll number is appearing under the measure list, Tableau is doing the summation of all these 4 rows. Wherever we have Venkat, for all those 4 rows, Tableau is doing the summation so that it is getting 4 here. So in the Tableau, it is displaying 4, which is not a correct value. So for that, what I have to do is I have to convert I have to convert this measure into dimension here. Why? Because if it is a dimension, Tableau will not do the summation. Tableau will display the values as it is. Okay, like this. So I'll go to Tableau now. So I'll click on this drop down here. Now I will convert this I will convert this measure into dimension. Now you see, now I can see the roll number in a dimension list. Now, when I drag this dimension into the row shelf or column shelf or anywhere, I can see roll number as 1, 2, 3 only. Because for dimensions, Tableau will not do the summation. Even though it is an integer, but if it is even though the student roll number contains integers or numbers, but if it is appearing under the dimension list, Tableau will not do the summation, even though it is an integer or number. Okay, so this is the main thing. So this is where we have to convert somewhere in real time. We have to convert our measures into, okay, we have to convert our measures into dimensions. And we have one scenario where we have to convert our dimensions into measures. Okay, let me show you that scenario. So for example, how many students we have in the class, for example. So when I drag student here, okay, let me explain you the scenario actually. So okay, if I go to, okay, for example, uh, how many students we have in this class means Venkat, Ravi and Rajesh. So we have how many candidates? We have three candidates. My requirement is I want to show candidate 3 in the Tableau sheet. I don't want to show the each individual student name. I don't want to show the name wise. I don't want to show how many students are there. That means I want to count how many students are there. So Venkat is one student, Ravi is second student, Rajesh is third student. So I want to count number of students and then I want to display this number in the sheet. So in that way, for this scenario, we have to convert our dimensions into measures actually. Okay. So as of now, the student name is appearing under the dimension list. Whenever you drag a dimension into the row shelf or column shelf or text here, it will display the names as it is because as it is a dimension. Now I want to convert this dimension into measure. So in how many ways we can convert the dimension into measure means I can directly go to drop down here. I can go to I can go to measure option and I want to count these persons, right? So I can simply click on the count distinct option. Now you see I can see 3 here. So this is one way I can convert the dimension into measure. Or what I will do is I will go to this student name. So first I will duplicate this value. So without duplicating also we can do it. But in real time, the best practice is we have to duplicate the dimension. And now I will go to this dimension list. I'll convert this into measure. Now you see, whenever I'll convert this into a measure, Tableau is automatically doing the count of this field actually. So in that way, if I drag this student name now into the text here, Tableau directly displaying the count of students here. Okay. So in that way, I can see now here count distinct. So what is the difference between count and count distinct? Okay. So here we have two functions actually. So we have count and count distinct. So I will show you, I will explain you this in detail bit later. We have to discuss few more things here actually. Okay. Okay, this is where we have to convert. These are some scenarios where we are converting our dimensions into measures and measures into dimensions. Okay, now let me show you one more. I have to discuss one more topic here. The topic is count. What are the these are fields, right? What is the meaning of count field? What is the meaning of measure name field? And what is the meaning of measure values field? Okay, okay. Now I can say as of now, I can say these are the three fields. Okay, these are the three fields which are generated by Tableau itself. Okay, these fields will not appear in the database or data source. For example, I don't see count, measure names, and measure values in the database. For example, if I go for Excel here, I don't see those three fields here. Okay, but these three fields will be generated by Tableau. Whenever you connect to any database, not only Excel, whenever you connect to any database, CSV file, Microsoft Excel, any database, Tableau will generate these three fields additionally: measure names, measure values, and count field. So I can see all the fields which are existing in the database, and along with those fields, I can see these fields are extra fields which are generated by Tableau. Okay, now we will see what is the use of these three fields. First, we will see what is the use of this count field. So the count field is nothing but sheet to count. Why it is showing sheet to count means if I go to Excel file, I have connected to the sheet 2 from Tableau, right? Because of that reason, it is showing sheet 2 count. For example, if you connect to sheet 1 in the Excel file, it will show you sheet 1 count. So whatever the table you will connect, it will show you the table, and within the bracket, it will show you count. Now, what is the advantage of this count field? So whenever I drag this count field into the text here, I can see 7 here. So what is the meaning of 7 here? 7 means it is the number of rows in the table or sheet. Okay, it will display the number of rows or rows sometimes called records. Okay, rows sometimes called records. So it will show number of rows or number of tables in the particular database or the sheet what we have connected. For example, we have connected to Excel file, right? So if I go for Excel file, so this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the third row, this is the fourth row. Like that, we have 7 rows in this table. So count field will show how many rows or how many records we have in the particular data source or particular table to which we have connected. Okay, this is one scenario. One is one use case of this count field. And what is the other count field? What is the other use of this count field means? Just give me a second. So what is the other use case of this particular field is? Okay. So what is the other use case of this particular count field is? For example, I want to see in how many rows the Venkat is coming. 4 rows, right? So I want that type of analysis. In how many rows the Venkat is coming, in how many rows the Ravi is coming. Like that type of analysis I want to show here. So as of now, the Tableau, the count field is displaying, we have 7 rows in the table. But whenever you drag the student name into the row shelf, now I can see that the 7 is divided for each student. So now the Venkat is coming in 4 rows, Ravi is coming in 2 rows, Rajesh is coming in 1 row. For example, if I drag a subject into the row shelf, now same number of rows will be divided for each subject. Now subject S1 is coming in 2 rows, S2 is coming in 3 rows, S3 is coming in 2 rows. If you want to check for a particular subject, for example, S2 is coming in 3 rows, right? So I want to check whether it is correct or not. I can go to database here. I can see for S2 subject. So S2 is coming in 3 rows. The same thing I can see in the Tableau also. So not only a particular field here, if I drag student name and subject here, now you see Rajesh and S2 is coming in 1 row. This combination is coming in 1 row actually. So Ravi and S2 is coming in 1 row. Venkat and S1 is coming in 1 row. Venkat and S2 is coming in 1 row. Venkat and S3 is coming in 2 rows actually. So I want to check whether it is correct or not. So Venkat and S3 subject, this combination is coming in how many rows from the database? 2 rows. So I want to check whether it is correct or not. So if I go for Venkat, and you see here, Venkat S3 is coming in 2 rows actually. So that is the use of count field actually. Okay. So this is about this video. I want to tell you one more thing, right? So we have discussed initially how the Tableau is identifying measure and dimension here. So for Excel file, if it is a if the field contains numeric values, it is coming as a measure. If the field contains alphabets or strings, then it is considering as a dimension. It is for Excel files. Now, what will happen, for example, when we connect for a database actually? So, as discussed yesterday in the last previous session, so as of now only we are considering Excel as a data source, but in real time we can use MySQL database or we can use any database for storing the data actually. Okay, so for example, if I go for a database, So in the databases, in the Excel file, the data is stored, we are storing the data in different sheets. In sheet one, we can store some different information. In sheet two, we will display some different data. So if it is an Excel file, we are saying in form of sheets. But if we go for databases, the database will store the data in the form of tables. Okay. So assume that this is a one table. Okay. Now my next question is, who will create these tables? So we have a database team, or we have ETL team. So this team will create these tables in the database. Okay, okay, that's fine. Now what is my next question is, so for example, assume that while creating this name field, right? While creating this name field, the database person has to mention what is the data type of this particular field actually. You know, right? In C language, right? For example, when we are initially working for C language, we are writing C program like this: integer A, integer B. So, or I can say like that we are mentioning, like string B or string A, like that we are mentioning actually string C. So what is the meaning of it is, so for a particular thing, we have to mention that whether it is a number, or that is whether it is an integer or whether it is a string. We have to mention these details actually. Okay. So here also in the database also, while creating this table or while creating this particular field here, the database team has to mention the data type. The database team has to mention what is the data type of that particular field actually. Okay. So for example, if the ETL person will mention the data type is text, character, or varchar, Tableau will consider that as a string data type, and it will divide that field as a dimension. Okay, let me repeat one more time. For example, while creating the location field, if the database person will mention the data type of this field as text, character, or varchar in the database, then the Tableau will take that field as a string data type. Within Tableau, it will consider that as a string actually. The data, the data type within the Tableau is a string actually. Now it will divide that field into dimension actually. Okay. So similarly, if the data type, if they mention that as a date or date time, Tableau will consider that data type as date or date time only, and will divide that field into dimension only again. Okay. So for these three data types, Tableau will consider those fields as dimensions only. And for example, if we take amount field here, if the person will, if the data type of this amount field is mentioned as integer or big integer, then Tableau will consider that as a measure actually. And for measures, the Tableau will consider the data type as number whole or number decimal. Okay, like this. So whenever you connect to a particular table, Tableau will first identify what is the data type of a field actually. If the data type is field, the data type of field is falling in any one of these categories, correspondingly, Tableau will divide that field into whether it is a dimension or measure actually. Okay, so this is the concept how the Tableau will read, how the Tableau will divide a field into whether it is a dimension or measure. Okay, now let's take a particular measure here and we'll see what is the data type of particular field in the Tableau. So for measures, what is the data type of, for measures, what is the data type in Tableau? Number whole or number decimal. But what is the data type in the databases? Integer or big integer. We can't go to database and we can't see that here, but I can show you how to see in the Tableau here. Okay, so let's go to Tableau. Let's go to any one measure here. Now, if you go to change data type, I can see here number whole or number decimal. It is for by default, the number whole is checked here. If you want, you can change it to either number decimal, string, or like that also. This is for measures actually. But if I go for any particular dimension here, You see, I can see under change data type, I can see here string is checked here like that. Okay. So this is what about dimensions and measures actually in the Tableau. Okay. So I will come with one more topic in the next video. So this is Tableau series 3 actually. So if you are interested in training, you can please contact me on this number. If you are planning for training on Tableau, or if you are planning for training on Power BI, just please contact me on this number actually. Okay. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Bye.